Hey guys, this is U.S. History 23.3 Homework Helper. Here's an example of how you should do your study guide. Okay, so we have terms counterculture, Haight-Ashbury, and the Beatles, and Woodstock. Okay, so Woodstock was a music and art fair that attracted thousands. It lasted 3 days and was a countercultural cultural movement. Okay, this festival represented, as one songwriter put it, the 60s movement of peace and love and some higher cultural cause. For 3 days, the most popular bands and musicians performed, including Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Joe Cocker, Joan Baez, The Grateful Dead, and Jefferson Airplane. Despite the huge crowds, Woodstock was peaceful and well organized. However, Tom Matthews, a writer who attended the Woodstock Festival, recalled his experiences that were less than blissful. So basically, he just said it was kind of dirty and gross a little bit. Okay, let's look at the next one. So counterculture is a movement made of mostly of white middle-class college youths who have grown disillusioned with the war in Vietnam and injustices in America during the 1960s. They turned their backs on traditional America and tried to establish a whole new society based on peace and love. Haight-Ashbury was in San Francisco and was known as the hippie capital, mainly because California did not outlaw hallucinogenic drugs until 1966. Okay, so we have Beatles and Jimi Hendrix. So the Beatles, perhaps more than any other, helped propel rock music into mainstream America. The British band, made up of 4 youths from working-class Liverpool, England, arrived in America in '64 and immediately took country by storm. By the time the Beatles broke up in 1970, the 4 lads had inspired a countless number of other bands and had won over millions of Americans to rock and roll. So, let's see. We'll come back to that in a minute. I think that's about it, but let's see if there's more that we should put on that. Okay. Explain why conservatives disapproved of the counterculture. How did conservatives respond? Okay. So, let's see. They believed that they were being counterproductive and showing decadent values. This led conservatives to want cuts in welfare and in the federal government. This is why many conservatives turned to Nixon to set the country on a more conservative course. Let's see. Number 2, describe what Timothy Leary promoted. Okay, so Timothy Leary was a Harvard psychology professor and part of the counterculture. He said, tune in, turn on, drop out. So he encouraged people to be part of the counterculture, which was basically based on peace, love, and harmony, okay, and not being part of the traditional culture. What led to the decline of the hippie movement? So by the 70s, many had fallen victim to drugs. They used experiencing drug addiction and mental breakdowns. They weren't very responsible, so that was a big problem. Okay, as far as organizing who would do what. So that was a problem. Okay, and also let me go back though to Timothy Leary, because I see another important point here is he promoted the use of LSD as a mind-expanding aid for self-awareness. So that might be something else you want to add, okay? So on this one, we can also add the decline. It gave way to violence and disillusionment. Communes of hippies relied on each other and fell apart because of lack of responsibility. And many had fallen into drug use. Many hippies lined up to college welfare and food stamps. They became dependent on the society they had once rejected. Okay. Okay, so who was Andy Warhol? So he was an artist that created counterculture, rebellious style of art, bright, simple, commercial-looking images often depicting everyday life, and they call this pop art. Okay, was Richard Nixon a supporter of hippies? Support your answer. Okay, so no, he was not. He believed that the counterculture movement was ripping apart the conservative values of what the USA represented. And then, let's see, for 6, we have, what did J. Edgar Hoover think of hippies? So he is an FBI director who issued a warning that revolutionary terrorism was a threat on campuses and cities. Other conservative critics warned that campus rebels posed a danger to traditional values and threatened to plunge American society into anarchy. Okay, so he believed that they were creating revolutionary terrorism and were a threat on campuses and in cities. He saw this as an attack on traditional values and threatened to plunge America's society into anarchy. Okay, so I think the only thing was the Beatles back here was just that they were an amazingly popular band and that they represented the counterculture of peace and love. So that was, and then Jimi Hendrix, I'm not sure why he was an ID. They didn't mention him that much, but he was at Woodstock as a performer. So you could say he was at Woodstock. The significance of that, I'm not sure. I can maybe look into that a little bit more and then talk to you guys about that in chapter 24's video, okay? So I think we've covered this. And if you guys have any questions, let me know. So up next is chapter 24. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.